Welcome to the Home Education with Ease podcast. I'm your host, Christine Furman, a homeschool mom, entrepreneur, and educator with over 20 years of experience in the areas of elementary and special education. It's my mission to help you create lifelong learners and embrace a holistic approach to education at home. I'll be sharing practical strategies, inspiration, and resources to support your family. Whether you're a stay-at-home mom, a business owner, or balancing work and homeschool, you're in the right place to connect with a community that values education just as much as you do. Join us each week as we ditch the stress, embrace the joy of learning, and set your family up for a lifetime of success. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Home Education with Ease podcast. I'm your host, Christine Furman, the home education expert, and I have a very special guest with us today, Ashley Allen-Pina. And she is a nutrition and a wellness coach. And I am excited to bring her on the show today because the last episode, I shared with you my personal health journey and how my body has changed after I turned 40. And I decided it was a perfect opportunity to bring a professional on to share her story and her insight and kind of see if I'm even on the right track. And I shared some good, valuable information with you guys last week. Well, thank you so much, Ashley, for being here. Would you mind introducing yourself a little bit?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. But as you said, I am a certified nutrition and wellness coach. I am also a military spouse. We started homeschool this year. I have two wonderful kids. One is 8 and one is 3. And we actually have one on the way. So we are just growing our little family and adapting to the changes as it comes to us. And I have an extensive background in a lot of different industries just because of being a military spouse. So it's been amazing to actually get to dive into more of a passion of mine and really start getting momentum in that as I am taking time to homeschool my kids. It's funny how it allows you to really think about what matters in your life as you are taking care of your little ones.
Absolutely. It really does. It puts things into perspective. And, when you start homeschooling, you're like, oh, this is what it's all about,
Yes.
Spending that time with our kiddos because we are building them up to ensure that we're setting them up for success. And what do you want to do in your life? And then it also makes you reflect and it's like, wait, what do I want to do with my life? I am able to pivot and, make changes. And I think that is such a beautiful thing that we are able to do. And you have done that recently. You have taken that leap of faith. And I remember us talking about a year ago or so, maybe longer than that, about you taking that leap of homeschooling. And then I guess it was longer, right? Because you homeschooled this full year.
Yes. And it's funny. My husband was homeschooled, but I was always in a public school / charter school. And I told my husband, I've learned never to say never. I told him I would never homeschool. However, circumstances change. And when you become a mom, it's just a whole different experience.
Yes.
Especially, childcare. And Elena went to public school, kindergarten and first grade. And I mean, she did awesome, but it's just been amazing to see her blossom in the home environment and see how much she loves it.
Yes.
And as you said, with homeschooling, you really invite them to be like, what do you want to learn? And incorporate that in their schooling. And so it makes you ask yourself those questions and it just opens up new opportunities. And, I had kind of thought that things would just kind of pause for me while homeschooling, but it kind of did the opposite.
Right. Right. You started a business and you got pregnant. So, I mean, lots of things going on. So that's amazing. And it's just amazing to connect with you and to really dive into your new passion now. So being a certified health and wellness coach, what led you down that path?
To be honest, it's after I had my son. My hormones were just in havoc. And I think it was due to the stress. We moved to Georgia, and that was about 3 years ago. And I had very high expectations for what my body was supposed to do.
Yes.
Like with my daughter, I was in my 20s when I had her. And I didn't really have to work too hard at like bouncing back.
Hmm.
I gave myself grace. I'm like, it's going to take time. I don't know what my body's going to be like. But I nurtured my body. I didn't put pressure on it. And it came back. I was able to do athletic things again and feel healthy. But with my son, with the stress of moving here, he was a completely different infant than my daughter was. And I had expectations of my body. I'm like, it's done this before. So now I have to be super restrictive as I'm breastfeeding, which I would not recommend. I wasn't getting the sleep and I was just pushing my body too hard. I started doing workouts after I was cleared, but it was way too much for my body at that time. And I was also finishing up a master's degree
Wow.
in parks and recreation management. So when my hormones got in such a mess, I didn't have my menstrual cycle for 2.5 years.
Wow.
And it was crazy because the doctors initially was saying this is normal. And it was normal for me when I was breastfeeding.
Hmm.
But when I stopped breastfeeding, you expect things to come back.
Right.
Now, will say the one factor that's different is I never went back on birth control, where I did with my daughter. I went on birth control after I had her and after breastfeeding.
Hmm.
So I didn't go back on birth control. And I was told, like, this is normal, it's going to fix itself. Well, end up a couple doctors later, I'm working with a gastroenterologist, an OBGYN, an endocrinologist, which focuses on hormones in my other doctor, and a pelvic floor specialist.
Wow.
And the thing that it was frustrating is I was operating under all these doctors, but they didn't communicate with each other. And it was so overwhelming because I'm supposed to be doing all these things and they are, I think people want the quick fix. So, like, the endocrinologist was like, hey, let's get you on hormones to start correcting your hormones. And I'm like, I'm open to it. And I tried it for 2 months. I instantly put on 10 pounds.
Wow.
In addition to my cortisol, I think it was at 20, which is pretty high. And I was just like, how do I get this down? And
Hmm.
they're like, oh, just eat healthy, work out, relax, like try to de stress. And you're like, I'm trying. Like,
Right.
I
I'm
don't know how
doing
to
those
fix all this
things.
stuff. So I tried a couple months on hormones and I ended up saying, like, I want to do things more naturally. I feel like my body should be able to do these things.
Hmm.
And so, just to kind of bring things to fruition, I ended up hiring my own health coach because I wanted somebody in the journey with me because I was going crazy trying to Google solutions and find the things that I wasn't doing because I'm like, I'm working out 5 to 6 times a day
Wow.
and I feel like I'm continuing to put on weight. I'm eating healthy foods because I had been an athlete my whole life. I competed at Worlds in a triathlon. I
I
used to
love
play
that
collegiate
fun fact
soccer.
about you.
Yeah. So, like, I know how to eat, but I think that those years of being a competitive athlete and being on hormonal birth control masked that I was under nurturing myself. And so I think that me not going back on birth control really showed where my hormones actually were
Hmm.
without being told, like, okay, your body's supposed to have a period because you're on this pill. And so, what my health coach helped me do is she said, let's not do as many workouts.
Hmm.
Let's actually give your body more food. I did go on a supplement to support my adrenal function
Hmm.
just to help get it going.
Right.
And that helped lower my stress. I stopped feeling, like I had to take on the world. She gave me permission to take some naps. And she's like, let's find some healthy ways to get you some rest and some mental clarity. So we started a gratitude journal. And then I also had to do some digging in terms of loving my body because
Hmm.
I always picked it apart. And there was this book that I started doing. I think it's called rest restored, I can get that for you.
Yeah, that'd be
But
great. We can put that in the
essentially,
show notes.
yeah, essentially it's this book where you can't just read it. It actually makes you complete exercises.
Oh,
And so it's all about finding yourself and just who God says you are and actually building up a confidence that, like, yes, it's good to nurture your body. Yes, it's good to move your body, but you also need to know, like, who created you and that you actually need to love yourself no matter what stage you're in.
yeah.
And so I think that acceptance and that love that I needed to develop for myself was an essential piece to the rest of the puzzle. So
Mhm.
it really took somebody telling me, like, hey, you're doing a good job. Let's actually bring down the stress and you will progress. And my cortisol went down, like, I think we got it down to 12 when I was working with her.
Wow.
And it's even less now because I've continued the habits after I stopped working with her. We did end up really deep diving into some gut issues,
Mhm.
which also helped. So I ended up cutting out gluten because I realized that I had a sensitivity to it.
Mhm.
And we cut out some other foods that just, you think you are normal. Like when you look at your bowel movements, that's not something that people really look at. They're like,
Right.
oh, this is just how my body reacts. And when somebody else was asking me about my bowel movements, she was just like, that's not normal. We were using like the Bristol stool chart. And she's like, you should be a type 3 or a type 4. I'm like, I am not that. I'm either on one end of the spectrum or the other.
Wow.
And she was just like, we really need to pay attention to that as we're going through these things. And so we ended up doing a low FOD MAP diet,
Mhm.
and she helped me bring me through step by step on what that looked like. Where before I hired her, I actually did the low FOD MAP diet by myself that the gastroenterologist told me to do.
Mhm.
And I came back from that and I'm like, I have no sensitivities
Wow.
because, like the bloating, the gassiness, your BMs, you just count that as normal. This is just what the human body does. But when my coach was like, nope, these things aren't as normal as you think they are,
Right.
when we actually started paying attention to those signals, I'm like, oh, my body is trying to tell me things.
Yes.
Like it
Yes.
does work. And I just wanted to like say to you and other women, your bodies aren't broken and your bodies do speak to you. And I thought my body was broken. And I was so mad at it that it couldn't do what I wanted it to do. But it was just trying to protect me
Mhm.
and give me signals on, hey, things aren't right, that I just didn't know how to listen to them.
Right. And I love that. That's such a great point because I've been leaning into that, into my body and saying, like, okay, this doesn't seem right. And I firmly believe that our body is telling us, it is giving us that, hey, something's not right here. You need to make a change. And that is something that I dove into a lot of like, something's not right. And I need to pause and I need to figure it out and figure out what changes I need to make. And I talked about last episode, like every 10 years, our bodies are changing. Every decade, there's new things that are coming. We have life changing moments, having a baby, coming off of that, postpartum, getting pregnant again, birth control, all of these things that we need to like stop and listen to our bodies. And I just love that all. So I have a question. How do you measure your cortisol? Is that a blood test? Is that something that people could do?
Yes, we got it through a blood test. And actually, that was one of the first things my general doctor did when I told him that my hormones were off. I wasn't seeing progress in certain areas. He's like, okay, this is one of the automatic draws for you. Now, there are health coaches, and even like something that I have access to is there are different type of either blood work or there's stool tests, there's blood tests that people can give you a link to, and you can actually order yourself. So you don't necessarily have to go through a doctor,
Hmm.
but general doctors should be able to give you a blood test that measures your cortisol. And that was a huge piece of the puzzle for us is if your cortisol is too high, your body is just going to store and it's going to go into just overdrive, just trying to protect you because it thinks that something's actually after you. Like,
Mhm.
it, our bodies aren't made for the modern world that we're
Right.
in.
Right.
And, it's really ironic because it just seems so simple. But when you are doing all the things, you're like, I have a little one that I'm
Yeah.
running around. I'm trying to work out and just juggling all these things, you can't really tell like what the main driver of your cortisol is.
Mhm.
And just knowing that it's high, you don't necessarily know what to do to bring it down.
Right.
And it takes time. And I think that's another thing where I was looking for an instant, like I was looking at different juices, different cleanses, different
Mhm.
products that I could take that was going to be a quick fix.
Right.
But this work with my coach specifically was probably a year and a half. And we didn't see success right away. I think I worked with her for 9 months before I got one menstrual
Mhm.
cycle. And then it was a couple more months. And then I got another one and I had stopped working with her. And then after that, I started getting more frequent. And then I ended up getting pregnant. But I didn't even know if I was going to be able to get pregnant. Like, we were looking into adoption, and I didn't want to put myself through IVF because I already have two wonderful kids.
Mhm.
So I didn't want to go to that extreme. But it was really like, I don't know what the road looks like, but it definitely was not a quick fix. And neither is, if you are just starting your journey, like
Right.
weight loss. A lot of people are advertising these products on, getting you results in 30 days. And I did when I was desperate to just try to lose some weight. I tried Optavia, which is essentially a diet where you order these products and you're probably getting like 900 calories
Wow.
a day, which is way under fueling. And you start
Right.
to add things in like one meal for lunch, but you are relying on these like packets of food for your other nutrients, which is not good.
Wow.
And so when you're desperate, though, when you are trying to lose weight, trying to fix what it is, you just grab
Yes.
at
Yes.
things instead of like looking at the whole picture. But it's hard to get yourself out of that
Yeah.
once
It
you are down the rabbit hole.
it really is true. And I remember years ago, and this quote kind of keeps coming up, and maybe you know it, but it's almost like it takes a small amount of time for you to start noticing a change in your body, right? A shorter, like weeks, right? Maybe a month or something like that. And then it takes 6 weeks or 2 months or whatever for, I forget what it was. And then it was like, do you know this quote? Do you know what I'm trying to say here?
Yes, but I don't know it exactly, but it's essentially like it takes 4 to 6 weeks for you to start seeing progress, but like 6 to 12 weeks for other people to start noticing. And that's why, like, when you are working through like a health journey, whether it be gut health or weight loss or just trying to get more muscle, the scale isn't always the place to go
Right.
for how you are progressing. And that's why a lot of coaches will have you take progress pictures, but also do measurements because if your goal is to get sustainable results, most coaches are going to tell you like some form of resistance training needs to be incorporated,
Right.
especially as we're aging. You start losing muscle as you age. And so that's why there has been a bigger push towards we need to at least lift weights
Right.
a couple times a week. And you need to eat protein, whether you are a vegetarian or not. It's easier to eat meat when you're not a vegetarian, but there are ways that you can get in protein when you are a vegetarian, but you need to prioritize protein. And I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and it's when women go into perimenopause, your body sends signals that you're hungry.
Mm-hmm.
And your mind automatically goes to carbs. Like, I need carbs to give me energy. and we become more insulin resistant
Right.
as we start getting older too.
Yes.
And so it's funny because she was just like, but what your body is actually saying is it needs more protein because it is losing something. You are losing muscle. And so we need something to help defend that and to help feed that. And it was just really interesting how they put that because I'm like, I know that I need more protein.
Right.
Everybody says that, but having that like extra bit of information that what your body is telling you, like your brain says it wants carbs, but it actually needs
I
protein.
love that
That's
so
where it
much.
comes from.
So I did find the quote here, and it takes 4 weeks for you to start seeing a change in your body, which I know sometimes it takes longer than that, right? It takes 8 weeks for your family and friends to start noticing a difference. And it takes 12 weeks for the rest of the world. And it just says, keep going. And I needed that actual reminder when I just started out, right? So, very similar story to you, when I had my daughter, I was able to bounce back very quickly. I had her in March. By the time I went to school in September, and that was my goal, I wanted to walk in and teach like I didn't have a baby, right? I wanted it to look like, all right, you're back to normal, and I was able to make that goal happen. Then when I had my son 2 years later, it was harder. And number one, we now have two children to take
Yeah.
care of. Our body is now trying to bounce back again. And I can't quite remember if I got on birth control in between or not, but probably not because they're only 22 months apart. So let's put that out there. So probably not. And I was getting older, at that time. And now here I am. I'm 40 and I can start to see that decrease again, that change in my
Yes,
body. And, you talked about insulin resistance. That's something that I definitely felt for myself, that it was like, I know that when I don't eat sugar, I feel better. And we know this, right? You said something like, it's so simple. And it is so simple, it's hard. I say
it
that
is so
often.
hard. Yes,
Like it's so simple. We know exactly what we need to do. We need to strength train. We need to walk. We need to drink our water. We need to eat our protein, but it's hard
it
because
is hard.
in this society, right, there's just so much stuff out there. And I want to speak on this because you talked about this yesterday when we were talking via Messenger. You were talking about research, right? Because there
Yeah.
are so many things out there. We're constantly getting all of this information. Well, you should eat a lot of protein. No, no, no. You should do this diet. No, no, no. You should try this and you should try this. And, we get so confused, right? And we're like, what do we do? I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go have some ice cream, like forget it. And I thought that was such a good point, and I think that would be very helpful to our listeners of like, when you are looking for research, what makes it credible?
Yes. So, first of all, you want to go to more of like looking at systematic reviews, reviews that are actually conducted by researchers. And you normally want to see a lot of participants in their study. And you want to see that they have a control and you want to look at the specific variables they're testing because I think it's really easy to see a research study. And of course, they want to highlight a main point. And then when you dig into it, you're like, oh, in this research, they only did this on men. They didn't do
Uh,
this on women. And then, you can start asking questions like once you dive into it. But, I think a lot of the things that we see are opinion pieces. So, like more of the peer reviewed studies where it's more of a opinion piece than really diving into the data. And then, another thing that you need to look into is who is funding this research.
oh,
And I
yes.
think that's another big thing because you do see like the Beyond Meats was like a huge thing of like, don't do animal protein because this, and this, and really diving into who is funding certain studies because that does matter.
Yes.
And, one of the things that I really suggest is it's hard to look beyond the headline, but you do need to do some more clicks because I think it's really easy for us to just see a headline and run with it because we're busy. So you're
Yes.
like, I'm just going to take this piece. Or, if you are talking to somebody and you hear something that works for them, you automatically be like, well, then it has to work for me. And I think that's the piece of like us knowing information and knowing that it is simple, but it's really breaking it down to like, yes. So what works for Christine might not work for Ashley because we're two different people.
Right.
We have two different situations. We have two different preferences on what we like to eat. And so finding a coach or somebody that can help us navigate, like, this is my specific life. This is my specific lifestyle. How can I build habits to support it rather than completely change things? Like, yes, there's things that you are going to change, and some of them are hard. But not everybody like macro tracking and weighing your food.
Right.
That is a very useful piece of data, especially when you're working with a coach. However, that can add more stress to somebody's plate,
That would be
depending on
very
like,
stressful to me.
yeah,
And I don't
yeah,
do that.
no. And that's like, it would stress more people out. And, that's like where there's tips like my plate, or, a coach can say like, hey, you want a fistful of protein on your plate, just to be able to visualize that. So as you're traveling or as you are conducting yourself and eating, you have that information. Or it could be as simple as like, hey, add a couple more vegetables.
Right.
you know? And so I think there's different things that coaches can help do, or you can take into your own journey to be like, okay, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to pick this thing, whether it's drinking more water. That is a huge thing that a lot of us don't do. And so one tip that I have for my clients on how to drink more water, bring the water with you on a walk. I drink so much more water,
Yes.
and get something that you like to drink water out of.
Yes. Yes.
Like, get yourself a cute water bottle, fill it with fruit and then fill it up. Like, it doesn't have to be boring, but you do want something, I need a big thing of water right
Right.
here.
I have
So I'm
mine right
not
here
like,
too.
yeah, so I'm not constantly filling up. So like the easy things, breaking it down to how it works for you and talking to somebody on how to incorporate that into your life, I think is a big missing piece.
Yes.
And then it helps get you through some of that fluff, as we've just talked about, like the different things that you see. Some people do cut out groups of food. Like, as you and I just talked about, we kind of had to go gluten free.
Hmm.
Now, during this pregnancy, I've added it back in, and I'm not seeing the reactions that I was seeing, a couple months ago.
Hmm.
And so one of my goals is to be able to add in a little bit. I don't
Right.
need a lot of gluten. I love eating potatoes and rice, and those don't have gluten in them.
Right.
So I think it is easier to go gluten free. But when I was getting my certification, they were like, try to not eliminate all the food groups because it is hard to navigate. It can cause more stress. And there's actually not enough research to support completely eliminating things. Now, if that's your preference, we can definitely support that and run with that. And your body might react differently. And that's like the kind of test piece to it all.
Right.
But I don't think anybody should ever eliminate just full groups just because somebody else is doing it.
I agree. And that's something that I feel definitely a coach working with someone, because a lot of times you can think you're eating healthy, right? I know for myself, like, I eat healthy. And then when you really sit down and you write down what you're actually eating, or you verbalize it to someone else, it's like, mm, that sounds healthy, but maybe it's not as healthy as you think it is, you know? And I had to have that realization with myself, where I had to say, I eat healthy and I work out and I do this, and what's going on? Why is the number increasing? But when I took a step back, was I working out consistently? I wasn't. I was letting my busyness get in the way, thinking that I'm too busy to work out. But
Hmm.
really, I was causing more stress for myself instead of just putting that time into my workout, so then that way I could be more productive.
Yeah.
I'm too busy, or I'm eating healthy, but really when I looked at it, I was eating way more sugar, because it was like, oh, it's just this treat here and it's just this treat here. And oh, when we go out to dinner, and all of those things started to add up, and I had to really look at it. from an outsider's perspective. So that is definitely the benefit of having someone else on your side, in your corner, to say, yeah, it looks good, but there are some tweaks that can be made so you can start to see that progress.
Yes, and that's another thing, you've kind of reminded me about it with, like, eating out. There's tips to, like, eating out that you can still enjoy yourself, so you can still, like, treat yourself, but it, like, depends on how much you eat out.
Hmm.
Like, for me, I only eat out maybe once a month, so when I eat out, I don't really hold back. I don't go crazy, but I'm not one for alcoholic beverages,
Hmm.
and that's something that a lot of people will say, like, "Okay, maybe limit to 1." And then maybe not order an appetizer, order your full course and try to make sure you prioritize protein. So, like, steak is a good one to go for if
Right.
you don't want chicken, and get some broccoli on the side. And then if you want a little piece of cake, enjoy it. But it does really take somebody looking into the habits of your lifestyle before you can just apply a blanket statement on
Yeah.
never eat out or like you have to completely restrict. But somebody who's traveling for work all the time, like that would not apply. Like
Right.
I used to travel for work and I'd be out for like 4 or 5 days and just eating out constantly because that was my option.
Right.
But different rules would apply because you're out all the time. So it really just depends. But I think that we can overcomplicate it.
Hmm.
But when you take a step back, when people ask me, like, hey, what should be the first step? And I'm like, well, I don't know where you're at right now in your journey because this is like questions I get on Facebook and Instagram. But first thing, I'm like, what is your sleep like?
Ah,
Because if you aren't sleeping, you are going to get hungrier throughout the day. So that is going to be probably more snacking. You might not have the energy to work out. So, like, step number one, look at your sleep. I
I
know that
love
they
that.
say like
I
7 to 8 hours,
would have
but
never thought that would have been step number one, honestly. But it makes so much sense, you know?
yes. And
Seven
that's
to
like
eight hours, you said. So,
how your body and mind recovers and regenerates. And that's where you can start to build muscle and start to allow your body to really do what it needs to do. But if you're not getting that, and I'm not saying like for the moms that
right.
are breastfeeding and they're like, oh no, there's no hope for me. I can't sleep right now. It's not the end of the world, but that is one factor
Mhm.
on if you are breastfeeding and up in the middle of the night and you can't get that 7 to 8 hours of sleep, well, then maybe we shouldn't be doing 4 to 5 workouts in a week
Right.
because that might be overstressing your body.
Hmm.
We probably shouldn't be in a caloric deficit because your body needs all the nutrients it can get right now to sustain you and your baby and your energy to then get to a healthier spot with hormones. So there are things that you can do if you're not getting enough sleep to help support your wellness journey. But that, again, it takes some looking at your lifestyle to really be able to develop a plan for you.
Yes, absolutely. And I love to also put that reminder out that a lot of times it's a season, right? Like breastfeeding, it's a season. So, yes, we may not be getting our full sleep, but it will come to an end at some point, and you'll be back to that sleep. And so, just keeping that reminder. And like you said earlier, just giving yourself grace and loving on your body. And I think that I was just reading something and I'm always about positive speaking, right? And speaking positively to others and to ourselves. We
For
need
ourselves.
to tell ourselves just how amazing we are because it's easy for someone else to say things to us like, oh my gosh, look at you doing all these things and look at all the great things that you're doing. But internally, I could be thinking, "Oh my gosh, I'm not doing enough. I am so busy. I can't get caught up," right? There's so many negatives there and they slip in so easily, and you don't even realize it. Or, "Oh my gosh, I missed my workout. I guess I can't do it today," or whatever that negativity piece is, giving ourselves that grace, loving on ourselves, and surrounding yourself with people that are really going to lift you up on your journey, no matter where you're at.
Yes. And I
So,
love that positivity piece. And that is something that I try to get out to people too. Like, okay, if you can't do this, like, what can you do? Like,
yes.
you can't do a workout. Well, what can you do today? Can you go on a 5-minute walk? And, talking about walking, it is best to take a 5 to 10 minute walk after each meal. That helps with your blood sugar balance and it helps, just what you intook in terms of calories, gives it something, a place for it to go
Yes.
because you are moving right after you ate. So there's like different things that you can do where you feel like your whole day is wrecked because you didn't get in your workout or whatnot. But thinking on like, what can I do today? What can I do to make myself feel better? Even if it's just writing a couple things that you're grateful for, that can change your mindset
Yes.
and really make you appreciate, as you said, like what you are doing, what your body's doing for you. My husband always says like, "Hey, you better be nice to my wife," because he knows like kind of what's going on inside my brain sometimes. So
I love that.
having somebody to just like give you that reminder to like snap you out on things, it is very helpful to have those people in your corner.
Yes. Yes, it really is. So, well, I think we have some wonderful takeaways. I definitely would say one, getting that walk in, a 5 to 10 minute walk after some meals. And what can you do throughout the day? Whether it is that walk, whether it's just going outside and running around with your kids,
Yeah.
I mean, just go to the playground and just be a kid again with them, play tag with them, play hide and seek with them, get in the pool. They will cherish those moments and those memories forever. So I give you permission, everyone, to do that. This summer is really just enjoy the time with our kids and what can you fit into your day. And definitely, speak positively to yourself and drink your water and have your protein. I mean, if anything else, those are some good starting points. Would you agree?
Yes, those are some great starting points. Sleep,
So,
water,
yeah, sleep too.
walk,
Yes.
walk, and then some protein. And as you said, have fun, really enjoy your life. And, what you are doing now is teaching your kids. You're teaching your kids how to talk to themselves. If you are always like on yourself for not doing the right thing, that's how they are going to reflect
Yes.
how they react. So, when I do try to make healthier choices, I'm like, I'm doing this to make mama's body stronger.
Right.
Or like if I am in a stage of weighing food, I am doing this to make sure mama is getting enough protein, is
Right.
getting enough food to support her body. So the way
Yeah.
that we talk to ourselves and our reasoning behind it is things that we can teach our kids to take on as they go through their life.
Absolutely. And that was something that I, just kind of follow up from that. I said that to my kids recently. I said, you know what? I am going to start on this no sugar journey because I realize it's what my body needs, not because I don't want to enjoy this treat with you. But right now, my body is changing and I need to pull back on the sugar, and it just made them realize that. Like, it was just, okay, that's what mom's doing.
Mhm.
And now my daughter, she's 10, and she said, I'm having these breakouts. Mom, I'm not going to eat sugar and I'm going to drink lemon water and I'm going to watch my dairy intake. And I was like, oh, my
Oh.
sweet girl. And I was like, I just love that. She even made herself a little chart so she can like check it off each day. And it really just reminds you in those moments, like that's what it's about.
Yeah.
We are speaking positively to ourselves. We are healing ourselves and any wounds or any
Generational
yes,
trauma,
drama.
like,
Yes.
that you've been seeing, and, like, you get that from your mom, and
Yes.
then, like, my mom got it from her mom, and it's just, like,
Yes.
passed down, and you're like, "This is where we break the cycle.
Exactly.
We are gonna still be healthy, but we are gonna love our bodies
Right.
and make sure we're taking care of them, and make sure we're communicating the proper things."
Yes. Not nicknames or, I mean, I've talked to a lot of moms, and it's like, oh, they had this like cute little nickname, but it really wasn't cute. It was really like hurtful on the inside when you really think about it. So, I just love it. Ashley, I could talk to you all day. Thank you so much for being here. I think this was just absolutely wonderful. And I would love to know, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
Yes. So I do have an Instagram. You can go to at Ashley Allen-Pina, which is ALLENPINA coaching. And you can follow me on Instagram, send me a DM. I also have a spot where you can apply for a consultation where you and I will walk through a wellness strategy session and talk about your life. And you can also find me on Facebook at Ashley Allen-Pina.
I love it. Guys, I definitely encourage you to check Ashley out and start taking your first steps to healing and on your health and wellness journey. Well, thank you guys all so much for being here. I encourage you to also join the Home Education with Ease Facebook group. So definitely connect with Ashley and reach out to her and ask her all the questions. But we always also have questions in the Facebook group. So each week we're asking a question and we would love to get connected with you. So definitely join us in the Facebook group and let us know, where are you at on your health and wellness journey, and how can we support you between Ashley and I, because I will make sure that she gets those responses as well. And how can we support you? And finally, I just want to leave you with, if you are looking for helping your child to read over the summer, I would love to invite you to check out the Reading Fundamentals program with EduPlay Learning. And we make reading fun, meaningful, and individualized for your kiddos, and really helping them to get to the next level of reading, whether you want them to start reading this summer, you want to build their reading skills, or they just need some extra practice. Definitely check that out. And I would love to get in touch with you, sharing all about the Reading Fundamentals program. So, Ashley, any last things that you want to share with the audience today?
Just give yourself grace and have fun with your kids. And they will see that and they will learn to incorporate everything that you're teaching them. And reading for the summer, you can never get enough of it.
Never, never. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Ashley. And I just loved having you today. So
Thank you for having me.
yes, have a wonderful day, everyone. And we will talk to you soon. Thank you for tuning in to the Home Education with Ease podcast. I hope today's episode left you feeling empowered and ready to take the next steps on your home education journey. Your support means the world to me. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. For even more resources, be sure to join the free Facebook group, Home Education with Ease, and visit eduplaylearning.com to explore programs and subscription kits. You can find the links and any other links mentioned in this episode in the show notes below. Remember, you're not alone. This community is here to support you every step of the way.